Good afternoon. Antarctic Mike here, coming to you from just outside the Memphis International Airport here in Memphis, Tennessee. Behind me, you'll see a plane coming in just a minute, is a taxiway for the busiest airport in the world between midnight and 6. Why is it so busy? Because of all the FedEx planes that come in here in the middle of the night. Every 90 seconds, an airplane is coming and going. And the reason I'm coming to you today is I want to bring you the story of FedEx, because not a lot of people know about it. And there's a couple of great lessons for all of us to learn from the FedEx story. FedEx was an idea that a guy named Fred Smith had as a college student. He was writing a thesis paper in college to get a graduate degree. So he came up with an idea for the Federal Reserve System to be able to get people paid more quickly and more efficiently by sending checks on overnight aircraft. Well, the funny part of the story is he wrote the thesis paper, handed it in, and he got a C on the paper. Not a B, not an A. It was a C. And so you think, what would be the normal response when you have an idea for a business and you get a C? Most people would probably give up on it. Not Fred. Fred said, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to do it anyway. So he took his idea for a company to start by sending checks on overnight aircraft for the Federal Reserve System, thus the name Federal Express. And he took his idea to the municipality in Little Rock, Arkansas. That's right, FedEx did not start here in Memphis, Tennessee. It started in Little Rock, Arkansas. So Fred pitched his idea to the municipality in Little Rock to get them to buy into his business and change the airport to accommodate him. They looked at his plan and they said, no thank you. We're going to pass. We don't think it's a good idea. So Fred said, fine, I'll sell it to the next city. So he packed up the things in his car, drove down the street. 3 hours later, arrived in Memphis, Tennessee. And behind me, you can't see it real well, but straight behind me is a 900-acre facility that FedEx runs here on the grounds of the airport in Memphis. And you all know the rest of the story. X number of years later, FedEx has changed the world. But the lesson I think here that applies to all of us today is the lesson of the difference between an idea and a conviction. You see, Fred Smith didn't just have an idea to start a company. He had a conviction that what he was doing was necessary and what he was doing would eventually change the world. So let me ask you a question about your company, about what you do every day. Do you have a conviction about what you do? Does your company have a conviction about what they sell and why they sell it, or what they make and why they make it? I was in a speaking engagement earlier this week in St. Louis, Missouri, and I had a number of CEOs from various companies that were in front of me. And there was one particular gentleman who runs a company that makes laminate wood. And the laminate wood goes on things like conference tables, chairs, and other things that offices typically might furnish their office with. And he said to me, I don't necessarily know that we have a really strong conviction about why we do what we do. It makes money. And I said, let me ask you a question. Do you feel like what you do changes people's lives? And he kind of looked at me in a dumbfounded way and he said, not really. And I looked at him and I said, well, with all due respect, why would anybody buy it? Think about your employees. If you don't really believe that what you're doing is making an impact on people's businesses and their lives, why are you doing it? And I said to him, give me an example of one of your biggest customers. He said, Under Armour and Kohl's. Part of what they make doesn't just go into office furniture, it goes into store fixtures and store displays where they put clothing and merchandise. And he said Under Armour just took a new initiative to put in a whole bunch of their line of clothing in the Kohl's department store. And what they've done is they've sort of created a store within the store. I said, are your displays featuring the Under Armour clothing in all of the Kohl's stores? He said, nationwide. I said, let me ask you a question. Is that going to make an impact for Under Armour? He said, of course. They're selling very well. I said, is that going to make an impact for the Kohl's company? He said, yes. I said, how many people work at Under Armour? How many people work at Kohl's department store? He said, I don't know, it's probably thousands. I said, it probably is when you add it all up. I said, think about how those sales are impacting the lives of hundreds and thousands of people who work both for Under Armour and for Kohl's. He said, you're right. You see, if we don't have a real conviction that what we're doing is making an impact and changing people's lives, why are we doing it? If you're a salesperson and you're out there selling something, let me ask you this. Do you really believe that what you're doing is changing the lives and the businesses of the customers who buy from you? If it's not, quite frankly, you're wasting your time. I'm not saying that it's not good to earn a living. I realize you have needs. People have to make a living. But you could make so much more impact if what you were doing was fueled by a conviction that what you're doing and who you're doing it for is really making a difference in people's lives and in people's businesses. Think about that. That's the story that fueled FedEx. Fred Smith, despite getting a C on the paper, despite being laughed out of the state of Arkansas, let's call it, had a conviction that his idea could fuel a company that would literally change people's lives and would change the world. And I know many of you watching have been touched by FedEx, whether you realize it or not, because many of the goods and services that you take advantage of every day, shoes you wear, the flowers you buy, the shirts you wear, came from somebody on a FedEx plane. I won't go into a lot of the details of the stories, but FedEx has many, 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 many customers that impact your life every single day. Fred Smith changed your life in both a direct and an indirect way because he had a conviction and didn't listen to the doubters, didn't let the circumstances around him stop him from following through on his conviction. So this is Antarctic Mike signing off from just outside the Memphis International Airport here in Memphis, Tennessee, home of FedEx. Hope this was helpful. If it was, please forward it and pass it on to those that you know. Make it a great day.